Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, completely unscripted 2-hour conversation between Elon Musk and entrepreneur Nikhil Kamath. And let me tell you, this wasn't just your standard surface-level chat. It was literally two people thinking out loud about everything, from the very nature of human consciousness to the nuts and bolts of future economies. So, we're going to untangle this incredible web of ideas together and really decode the worldview of one of the most polarizing builders of our time. Right out of the gate, we're starting with one of the most provocative questions they tackled. Are we actually living in a simulation? I know, it sounds completely like science fiction, right? But for Musk, this question fundamentally shapes how he views risk, reality, and human progress. The scope of this explainer is going to be pretty mind-bending, stretching from those deep philosophical questions all the way to the very real hard technology that's being built as we speak.
Okay, let's dive into this. To make sense of this sprawling chat, we've synthesized it into 4 clear pillars. 1, the nature of reality. 2, AI and the future. 3, society, systems, and politics. And 4, building the next giants.
Pillar number 1, the nature of reality, tackling the abstract. Because before we get anywhere near the hardware or the businesses, we have to zoom all the way out to look at Musk's thoughts on existence itself. So when it comes to simulation theory, the whole matrix idea, Musk actually views it purely through the lens of probabilities. His logic is that if technological progress just keeps continuing, eventually creating indistinguishable digital realities becomes a mathematical certainty. Therefore, the statistical probability that you and I are currently living in base reality is incredibly low. It's a huge concept, and it fundamentally shifts how you define what is actually real. And you know what's fascinating? To anchor all of this, Musk points to the classic sci-fi novel The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as foundational to his worldview. He essentially believes that the universe itself is the answer, and our collective human consciousness is simply trying to figure out what the right questions are. We aren't necessarily looking for one single mystical purpose to life. We are just trying to expand the sheer scale of consciousness so we can actually understand the universe we're in. And this brilliantly illustrates how that macro philosophy trickles all the way down to his personal life. When they got into the classic nature versus nurture debate in relation to raising his own kids, Musk notes that nature, our hardwired biological traits, is just overwhelmingly powerful. In his view, it often completely overrides the nurture aspect of how we are raised. All right, moving to pillar 2, AI and the future, moving into the tangible. This is where we bridge the gap from abstract philosophy to the stuff he's actively building. Let's break down the specific vehicles Musk is using to push this future forward. You got Tesla solving for energy, SpaceX working towards multiplanetary survival, and XAI pushing the boundaries of intelligence. But keeping it really simple, the absolute linchpin here is Starlink. It's not just about getting internet to remote places, it's literally a global nervous system guaranteeing that every single human has access to the global economy and our collective knowledge. But here's the catch. All of this technology leads to a massive societal shift. Musk talks about a concept he calls universal high income, or UHI. Notice he uses the word high. This is very different from your traditional universal basic income. The idea is that in a future driven by advanced AI and robotics, the sheer unlock in productivity means there will be absolutely no shortage of goods or services. In that scenario, having a traditional job becomes entirely optional, and the standard of living for everyone is exceptionally high. To put that into perspective, right now in our current economy, work is required. You have to work to survive and acquire scarce resources. But in Musk's AI-driven future economy, extreme productivity essentially removes scarcity. When working becomes truly optional, humans will only work for personal fulfillment, not economic survival. It is a fundamental rewiring of the entire human experience. But that leads me to a huge question for you. Can AI actually understand human nuance? As we rapidly approach what's being called an intelligent tsunami, this is the most pressing issue. If AI is eventually going to run our economies and do our work, there is an absolutely urgent need to regulate it properly. We have to ensure that these vastly intelligent systems actually align with human morality, humor, and all the unspoken rules of our society before they completely take the reins. Which brings us perfectly to pillar 3, society, systems, and politics, how the world operates. Because before AI completely takes over, we have to deal with how this tech crashes into our existing human systems today. Musk views the world as this massive machine of competing forces. On one side, business creates value, while government often acts as a massive regulatory brake. When they get into global trade, tariffs, and the staggering reality of US debt, he treats them like structural gears in a machine. Basically, if government debt spirals completely out of control, the entire free market machine is going to shake. And within those massive systems, there's this fascinating David versus Goliath dynamic, individuals versus collectives. Musk points out that power isn't just held by massive, slow-moving governments anymore. Highly motivated, singular individuals or agile little startup teams can completely disrupt deeply entrenched bureaucratic collectives. So how do individuals actually challenge those giants? Well, through communication. Even though video completely dominates our attention these days, Musk focuses heavily on X as a conversational, text-first platform. Why? Because he believes text remains the highest bandwidth way for humanity to exchange complex ideas, debate our history, and actually move the needle of collective consciousness. He also touches on a bunch of other real-world levers that are moving society right now. For instance, he points out the mechanics of immigration, specifically how restrictive H-1B visas are bottlenecking the world's top talent from building in the US. And surprisingly, he acknowledges the undeniable power of meme culture. Things like Doge prove that in today's digital age, a collective joke can wield genuine financial and cultural influence. It's wild. Let's move to our final pillar and see how this all builds together. Section 4, Building the Next Giants. Practical advice for the future. We're zooming down to the micro level now. If you want to actually build in this world, the psychological mechanics of success that Musk champions are incredibly straightforward. It all starts with the famous marshmallow test. You know, the ability to sit in a room with a treat and not eat it because you know you'll get to later. Practicing that delayed gratification and enduring immense, painful hard work today for a massive payoff years down the line, he sees that as the absolute foundational requirement for building anything meaningful. And when he looks at allocating capital today, he isn't looking for quick flips. The criteria are super strict. Companies must demonstrate extreme value creation. They have to be built to solve problems for the far future, and they need to possess a fundamental mastery of energy and money dynamics. That's what makes a company worth investing in. Naturally, this brings up a massive debate, going to college versus direct value creation. In a world that is moving this fast, Musk heavily scrutinizes the traditional four-year degree. He really questions whether kids today should bypass university entirely so they can just start creating tangible value in the real world from day one. And that leaves us with one final vital thought to walk away with. We've talked about simulations, multiplanetary species, and this impending AI tsunami. But bridging all of this vast philosophy with your immediate reality really comes down to this. If AI eventually makes traditional work optional, how will you choose to create value today? What is going to drive you when survival is no longer the primary motivator? Think about that as you look at your own potential. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep building.